What are we talking about today?
We are reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, we saw this movie about 1 week late. So, by the time we went, there was a ton of hype, a lot of reviews, a lot of influences on our opinion. So, that might have been a good thing, that might have been a bad thing, but I enjoyed the movie.
Honestly, the hype didn't affect me that much. I still enjoyed the movie just as much as I thought I would to begin with.
I thought we were going to see Smurfs, so I wasn't affected at all.
We're still going to go see that eventually.
Of course.
So let's dive into it. What made this a good movie?
Oh, definitely the comedy.
It jumps right in. I like that. That's one of the top things I like about a superhero movie.
Like all of our videos jump right in.
When you jump right in. I don't like it when you have half an hour of crap before you start getting to the good stuff. This one, you start off with comedy and a fight scene.
Well, and I think a part of that, and it could be done in the previous one, but I think a part of that is they don't have to do an origin story. They've already done that in the first movie. We've already been introduced to the characters. We're familiar with their personalities, so you can just dive right into it. You don't need to explain why they're doing what they're doing.
Yep.
It's just go.
Yep.
And I, for one, think that is probably the biggest part of this movie, is they had the comedy as well as the action very well done. And while there are a few aspects that we'll touch on that maybe weren't as good as the previous, it's based on expectations. When I go see a superhero movie, I don't need Shakespearean style writing. Actually, I'd probably hate Shakespearean style writing, but you know what I mean, a grand epic. As long as the story is good and all the other pieces are really good, I'm happy.
Yeah. I agree completely. Like, I mean, the action was well paced. You know, there was little fights in between as we went along, on top of course, a climactic ending. And every moment they had, there was a time where somebody was saying some one-liner or some interaction was hilarious between the group of them.
I think we can agree that Drax was the highlight.
Oh, absolutely.
At least from the comedy standpoint, though he's not short on the combat.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect much from him. You know, like, he was pretty entertaining, couple of lines in the first movie, but you really thought, like, they're going to put a lot more focus on, like, Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, and I think Groot is like, oh, look how cute he is, he's a little baby Groot. And not a lot of attention, at least going into it, was put on Drax. But I think every time that I laughed out loud in the theater, it was because of something he did or said.
And I honestly thought that they were going to stick him a little bit harder with more physical comedy, but there was so much more, like, dialogue comedy from him this time around. It was a lot of one-liners, but they were just the delivery and the moments where he managed to keep a straight face when saying some of these things were perfect.
Well, and I think that's just it. They catered it to his character.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't really have emotions that are similar to ours, or, you know, sarcasm. It's very blunt and literal.
Yeah.
And they use that to its advantage. Like, they actually realized where his comic source was and then went with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the best done character we've seen in a long time in some superhero movies.
Well, I mean, best done for comedy.
Yeah.
Like, I, for one, really enjoyed Rocket Raccoon in this one, for his more serious side, for his more self-discovery and his actual journey.
Yeah.
But for comedy, it was all about Drax.
Yeah, it's almost like they all kind of had to learn a lesson in this one. I would say Drax learned a smaller lesson than everyone else. But that's not the point of his character in this one.
When you have an ensemble, and even though this is Guardians of the Galaxy, there's still, 5, 6 of them, depending on who you want to count as part of the group going in and out. If you did development for all of them, it would be bogged down.
For sure.
So Drax didn't need that much development. Yeah, they touched a little bit on it.
Yeah.
A little bit more on a possible emotional undertone to him.
Yeah.
But kept him light and comedic because it would have been too much.
For sure.
And I think that they balanced that really well with Star-Lord's journey, Rocket Raccoon's self-discovery, Drax's comedy. Like, they really did take the finer points of each of the members and kind of work them together.
Yeah.
And I think that was that coherency is what really worked.
I liked how they continued a lot of the stories from the first one without making them interfere with the plot. Like, they just went along with the plot, like, especially between Star-Lord and his father, and between Gamora and her sister.
Yeah.
I liked the Gamora and Nebula storyline. One of the big critiques going into this, and tried to keep it out of my mind, was that in a comparison to the first one, storyline, and especially in regards to the villain, was not as well done. Because, with the first movie, Ronan was a very well-defined villain. He was a clear antagonist that was kind of forthright in his intentions and obvious. What did you guys think? I
was going to mention that as well.
I thought
actually.
the villain was one of the weakest points. Throughout most of the movie, I was thinking to myself, okay, when are they going to be done with the side plot and get to the real threat? And it never happened. And apparently that side plot ended up being the actual plot. I mean, to me, I was kind of surprised that there was nothing more to it. It did kind of feel like it was almost more like what you'd expect of an episode of a TV show, in that it can be fairly trivial, rather than like a huge plot like they had in the first one. It had very little to do with advancing the plot of the Marvel Universe, which is something that they've tried to do across almost all the movies they've done.
Well, yeah, because they've been hinting at the Infinite Gauntlet for a while with the stones.
So I would say, of all things, the plot was pretty trivial for this one. Still doesn't change the fact that it was a great movie and a very funny.
I was going to say the same thing about the villain. Ronan felt so direct with his villainy, but this one just didn't quite hit the nail on the head until closer to the end of the movie, in which case we had already built some predisposition on what we thought he was going to do.
Yeah, no, and I'm with Alex. At first, there was a point where it's like, okay, they got the initial confrontation working with the Sovereign and so forth.
Yeah.
And, that didn't see them as the main antagonist. And then, you get to the point, you're like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes into the movie, and you're like, well, when are they going to introduce a villain?
Yeah.
And then, like Ronan, who had a big, there is a big world, universe-ending dilemma, but it seems to pop up rather quickly and suddenly, although I didn't mind, because throughout the entire journey, I was just having a good time, because there was enough with pacing, keeping combat going, with comedy, with development of different characters, and I really do like how they explored a little bit more with Yondu's background, which I wasn't expecting, because I'm not thinking of him as a main character of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So it stood out to me when it was pointed out, and I noticed it, but it didn't affect my enjoyment of the movie, and I think that's a boon for it, because if it was okay, come on, Thor 2 with the Dark Elf, he was there, and he never seemed to be a threat. It affected my enjoyment of the movie. Yeah. For this one, I thought, when is there going to be an antagonist? And it did kind of pop up more suddenly than it could have. I was still having a great time, so it didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that goes to show that these guys don't really need a villain to carry a movie for them.
Well, no, because they can be their own villains, fight each other.
They just have such good characters, they don't need that kind of drive. Whereas, I think any other superhero movie, you don't have a powerful villain, it kills the whole thing, because almost all the other superheroes, they exist for those supervillains.
I think it's one of the pluses of having more of the comedy side, though, right? We watched the Avengers and all this kind of stuff, and there are tidbits of comedy thrown in there, with how Tony Stark is and stuff like that. But it's not enough to carry the movie, whereas the comedy in this really carried the movie. It didn't matter.
I don't think it was just the comedy. I think it was also the relationships. Mm-hmm. There was a very hit you over the head emphasis on the theme of family in this one.
Yes.
But it wasn't just comedy. It was the theme of family. It was them still kind of finding their place. Because in the first movie, they became the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were, again, a bunch of scoundrels and outlaws that kind of happened to come together. And it wasn't all of a sudden they were a coherent team that was working perfectly oiled machine saving the world. They were still while they were powerful and able to fight off, different threats, they were still trying to figure out how to do it efficiently as a group.
And I do like how the relationship stuff just happens during the course of the movie. They don't take a half-hour break in the middle of the movie to make it seem like, oh, this character's having this big breakdown. It happens all perfectly in the flow. And I hate it when superhero movies do that thing where they just stop and Spider-Man does a really dumb dance in the middle of it.
Well, no, and there's times where you see a movie and it's very formulaic. Okay, now we're doing plot development. Now we're going to do a fight. And here, they kind of fit things into seams and cracks and had it very smooth transition while things were still going awry or going well, but they were touching on all of it at the right pace. And I think the pacing was probably one of the best things about this movie is that, it's fairly lengthy, 2 hours and 16 minutes, but it flew by because it was just a blast.
I think one of the best things they did with the writing was actually to separate the group. When they separated the group, it allowed two storylines to kind of like interweave a little bit, and it gave us that drive to, there was always something going on with the other storyline while the other one was, let's say, dragging.
And that's part of what I mean by the pacing as well. It was a good way to give, again, not quite an ensemble, but an ensemble cast, enough screen time so that nobody was really left out, but also to kind of bring it together. And then again, with the family theme, when they get separated again, they're stronger together. That's a very, very obvious theme.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to talk about was the CGI.
Okay.
Like, the beginning of the movie, when they show Kurt Russell's character as a young man, that was very well done. No, there's a lot of CGI where it kind of looks like it's popping out from the background, or it doesn't quite look like it fits. And I watched that, and it's like, it looks like they got a young Kurt Russell to do it. And even beyond that, there was some scenes with Rocket Raccoon where they did a little bit more close-up to his face.
Yeah.
And I just found myself in the theater thinking, wow, they did an amazing job with the details, the features, the movements. Like, okay, obviously I'm not going to see a talking raccoon that's flying around, but it's just like, that's what it would look like. Like, it was just so well done. As what, space battles...
Oh, the battle in the ship with the pen was fantastic. I love the way they did that.
We won't say more than that, but that was a very entertaining scene.
Yeah.
And it showed, like, they changed some of the camera going up top.
Yeah.
Like, to me, some of the camera, CGI, the actual visuals were done so well. And I think they took a huge step for even future upcoming Marvel movies to actually set the bar even higher, because it visually, like, somebody else disagree with me if you can, but
no, I think we've started seeing that a little bit more and more. Like, I would say when I first noticed it was the Star Wars Episode 7, that they started using characters that had passed away, right? And it took me a second. Like, I was like, wait, that guy's dead. How do they do this, And then I realized, wow, that's a full CGI character, and the movement was just so fluid. I really think we're going to start seeing more of that, and it's just going to get better. But yeah, no, they did a great job in this movie, for sure. Kurt Russell was hilarious to me, because it looked just like him, but a younger version.
What they don't realize is I'm not actually here right now. This is a CGI.
This is CGI Alex.
If it was our CGI, you'd look like a stick figure. We don't have that technology.
I do look like a stick figure.
Okay, so I don't wanna like try and nitpick, but is there anything that you found that was lacking in the movie?
I think we already kind of touched on it a little bit.
The ending was a little weak, and it did feel a little abrupt, but that's such a small thing, I think. Some of the CGI towards the end in the last battle, I felt was a little weird looking, but
because they wanted to use
without spoiling anything.
Yeah,
that's about it, and it really didn't take anything away from the movie as a whole. Like, this overall, fantastic movie.
I have to agree with you. I don't know where you guys stand on it, but I, on a personal level, enjoyed it more than the first one. I will admit the first one had the more solid story, but, and not to say they were bad, but the pieces around it didn't fit so well like this one, where they had things like the comedy and the combat and the CGI all kind of lifting it up so that the sum was greater the whole was greater than the parts, right? And
Yeah.
to me, I actually placed that above the first one, which was a great movie itself, too.
I have a really hard time discerning which one I like better. And it would mostly be probably a little bit to that nostalgia. Like, this was the first real comedy action hero movie. And when they did the first one, I was, so excited about them doing it this style. Coming into this one, I already knew kind of where they were going to go with it. So automatically, I'm going to hold the first one to a high regard because of that nostalgia. But I don't know. It's tough for me. Again, I agree with the same points we talked about, where the villain might have been a little bit better fleshed out in the first one, but there were a lot of parts in this one that were better than the first one.
Other superhero movies, I mean, I want to see who they're going to conquer next. This one, I just want to see them get back together. I don't care what they're going to do. Just watching them do whatever it is entertaining enough for me.
Well, because they're so dysfunctional in that they can make some tasks much tougher than they need to be because they're stepping over each other's toes.
Well,
right?
even look at some of the after credit scenes. I'm not going to spoil them, but you see some of that and you're just laughing because of how stupid it is.
I have to say that's one thing, and this is as nitpicky as it gets. These after credit scenes from Marvel are just was there 3 of them in this one?
There's 3 of them, yeah.
So if you're going to see the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, stick around for the entire credits because it just keeps coming. Which, when more post-credit scenes were a little bit more rare, it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But in this case, the theater lights came on, a lot of people were leaving, and I kind of sat there almost begrudgingly because I was like, okay, I want to go, but I know there's more. Yeah. And it wasn't until literally the reel stopped where I was like, okay, it's good to go. And I liked the after credit scenes, but they weren't all necessary.
True.
Or could have at least even been in the end of the... I don't know.
At the end of the movie before the credit, yeah, I know what
I know, it's nitpicky. It didn't ruin the movie by any means.
Well, you have the first set of credits where they just say the actors and the big people, and usually there's something in those. And then you have the long credits where they have everything else. They should have done it in between the two. Have everything done.
See, they only had one in there that was of any real importance, which was to push into the next set of movies, right? The rest of it was just them goofing off, which I like, but yes, the timing may have not been the greatest.
Well, I mean, even in the first one, they had the post-credit scene with Groot dancing and Drax watching him, and that's not relevant to the plot. It's a good feel-good movie.
Yeah.
And the same thing with this one. There's 2 of the 3, they're just funny or entertaining, and they're not necessary. And I get the third one not being in the movie, so it doesn't feel like a to be continued. But honestly, they could have just had that one. I don't know. Again, completely irrelevant to the movie. You're watching a movie that's over 2 hours. It's fantastic. You're not going to nitpick if you have to sit a couple more minutes during the credits to see the final scenes. But that's me scraping the bottom of the barrel to find something to complain about this. I liked the first one, and going into the second one, I had high hopes.
Yeah.
But I did not anticipate enjoying it as much as I did. And honestly, if I had to pick between the 2, which one I would watch again, I'd watch the second one. So I'm just going to say it right now. I give it a 9 out of 10.
There you go.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Wow, we're not even. we don't even need to go into individual reasoning for it. I think we've all, and I shy away from the 10 out of 10 simply because of the storyline and antagonist points that were still okay, but there was definitely room to make it better.
If it had a better plot and a better ending, I think it would have been a 10 out of 10 for me.
And it's the same thing. I have a lot of trouble giving out the 10 out of 10 because that is a perfect movie, right? This was not a perfect movie, but it was a very highly enjoyable movie. I would go see it again. All that other stuff.
And I do want to reiterate what Alex said. Yes, it should have been better, but that's not to say what they had was bad.
No.
It just had a clear example that there was room to do it better. And that's how it can't be a 10 out of 10 because you're watching it and immediately this aspect could have been done better. How much better? No idea.
Yeah.
But I can't give it a 10 out of 10 when I know that there's one aspect like that is so obviously lacking.
Yeah.
But that's our review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 9 out of 10 across the board. I don't think we've ever had a unified score We didn't pre-discuss this,
Nope.
but go see it. When you do, drop us a comment. Let us know what you liked about the movie or didn't like. Tell us why we're wrong and the first one's better. Either way, we'll see you guys on the next review.
Hey, did you like that video? If you did, be sure to let us know by clicking the like button and leaving a comment. If you want to be first in line for any new content, be sure to subscribe to our channel and then hit up our Facebook page. The link's in the description below to see what's coming up next.